Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Peace's guest speaker series here, focusing on meeting the paralegal bencher candidates. As always, the views expressed by the candidates are of the candidates alone, do not reflect me, Justice and Peace's, Trias College, or any other education institution or organization I'm affiliated with. Today, I'm really happy to have Antonio Caruso, or I guess, do you prefer Tony?
Yeah, Tony's fine.
Perfect. Okay, so Tony, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice.
Yeah, so I've been a paralegal since 2015, roughly. I got a small little practice here in Niagara Falls, and I'm one of the biggest firms in Niagara Falls. And yeah, I practice mostly in small claims, LTB, and employment law.
And Tony, why are you running for bencher?
This is the reason why I'm running. I want you to hear this for a second, and then I'll tell you why I'm running. I'm running because I'm fed up with the Law Society. That's why I'm running. I'm fed up with the good governance, which I like to call them as bad governance. And so the reason that I'm running right now, because we need to save the Law Society. So I'm the guy that's been fighting very frivolously when it comes to the immigration matters. And so I'm running because we definitely need a change, because 16 years of bad governance is enough.
Now, I understand you're running with a group of individuals. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the coalition there that you're running with, and you don't necessarily go too much in depth because I know previous members there had elaborated kind of, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the points you shared together, and maybe the ones that are a particular concern for yourself.
No, absolutely. So I'm running as the Common Sense Coalition. As you are aware, we had Jeffrey on the show. We had Mr. Olson that was on the show, and we all basically we agree on all the major points that we brought forward. We may not agree on every little thing, but that's just life. But we do agree on the immigration matters. We agree on bringing a code of conduct for prosecutors. We agree that you only need a P1 license to practice family law. Never mind this nonsense of bad governance that we require a secondary license. That's not doing justice to the public. And we're running because we want to make a change. So each person has their own thoughts. Each person has their own opinions. But for the most part, we agree on almost the majority.
Now, for yourself, I mean, with that in mind, let's say we fast forward a couple months from now and you're elected. What is priority number one for Tony?
Priority number one is to bring a non-confidence vote against the treasurer. She needs to go. So that's going to be number one. So the treasurer needs to go because the treasurer has proven that she is out of touch with the public. She has proven she is out of touch with the licensees. And she has proven that she protects the licensees that are benchers, and she does not do her duty as per the guidelines. If somebody does file a complaint against a bencher, that you must give it to a third party. So she's been doing her very best to take care of those good governance people. So she's got to go.
Okay, maybe you could elaborate more on kind of what, for anyone that's maybe not aware of some of the issues that have been going on and your position there, so that there's a little bit more context for anyone that's listening.
Absolutely. So the contents, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not agree with the good governance, which is also known as the bad governance, they like to weaponize the Law Society complaints. So when they weaponize the Law Society complaints, there's no such thing as intake and resolution when it comes to a bencher's complaint. They send you automatically to investigations. The investigator, before the investigator takes over, by the way, they block your Law Society referral without you even knowing. By the way, they gave me a full refund and an apology. Thank you. But they still got questions that they need to answer. So that's what's going on right now. So because you speak out about immigration or you try to advance the scope of practice, they weaponize the complaints department to come after licensees. And that's going to come to a stop once I am elected. We're going to do a full investigation on the complaints department. Director Naomi Busi, if you're watching this, you will be fired. Start packing your belongings. If you need help, give me a call. I'll help you out. So at the end of the day, I'm going to restore common sense back to the Law Society.
Now, Tony, when you mentioned like the 16 years of good governance, now, I mean, I understand, most of the benchers that are running, to my knowledge, I mean, certainly for the paralegal benchers, 4 of the 5 are brand new. So, I mean, maybe sort of how do you lump, or what do you consider, part of this sort of good governance, or as you call it, bad governance? Like, how are they all affiliated together, in your opinion?
Well, because they're running as a slate. And you know what's hilarious about bad governance? When they say that they want to ban slates, but they're running together as a slate. How cute is that? You know what I mean? Oh, we don't want slates, but let's run together. And you had Bencher Corsetti that ran 4 years ago, and she promised paralegals that she was going to give us immigration. So if you actually find the 2018, 2019, statement of the candidates, she promised us immigration. What happened to it? She's the #1 bencher that's fighting us for the advancement of scope. And if you disagree with her, you get a Law Society complaint. Then you have Bencher Lamazo, who's also part of bad governance. She likes to take screenshots and assist Bencher Kathy Corsetti if you go against their ideology and their thoughts. So enough is enough. We don't need those types of politicians in office. We need to have proper representation. If you disagree, well, this is the life that you chose. This is the political life that you chose. There's going to be criticism, and because you've lied, you will be called out. So that's exactly what I've been doing. I've been calling them out on everything that they've been lying about. I've been following their elections for the last 3 terms, and I said, well, you didn't fulfill this, you didn't fulfill that. What's going on here? And then all of a sudden, to try to get Caruso out of the way because he's becoming a problem, let's bring in a frivolous complaint in regards to immigration, and let's be nice with the Canadian Bar Association, even though those matters were already addressed. So those matters were already addressed. The immigration minister wrote a letter to former Treasurer Donnelly, letting Treasurer Donnelly know, saying, no, we're not changing IRPA. IRPA is going to remain the way how it is. And paralegals are allowed to provide advice and representation as per IRPA 91.2. So we are allowed to practice, including our bylaws. There's, Mr. McDougall, when he was on the air, he says that the bylaws need to be changed. Well, I disagree with him. No, they do not need to be changed, because bylaw 4, section 6, section D, it says, where do we get our scope of practice from? And it says the Ontario legislator or an act of parliament, an act of federal parliament, which is Parliament in Ottawa. They're the ones that pass this federal statute, and we are allowed to practice immigration. I don't care what anybody says, we are allowed to practice immigration.
Okay, so let's look into the immigration issue there, right? I mean, I know obviously there's litigation, everything there. So perhaps maybe you can kind of give, for those who may not be aware of what's, and I know certainly I don't want you to go into the confidential or whatever with respect to the matter, but what is the issue in terms of scope? And as you pointed out, there's the federal government, there's IRPA, there's the Law Society's position. Perhaps you can kind of give a quick summary for anyone who's not aware of it, or certainly the students who may not know. Because I even got a question like, can I do an internship in immigration? And again, what exactly is your position there, and what has been going on over the last few years?
So I've been fighting the immigration the day I got licensed. Everybody said, Tony, it's not the Law Society, it's the government. The government needs to change the laws. It's the government's fault. Let's point at the government. It's the federal government, So that's all that I was getting. So I know the government. I work with the government. I did an internship with quite a few member of parliaments. I worked closely with Andrew Scheer. And so I actually did a lot of research. I had a nice little committee with me, and I know what the problem is. You know what the problem is, John Paul? The Law Society is giving false, misleading information to the public on their website. So they're discussing BC 35. This bill doesn't exist anymore. Look at the date, 2011. So when the Law Society comes after you or I or any licensees, when we are not putting something correct on our websites, why is the Law Society allowed to lie? Why is the Law Society allowed to deceit the public? Immigration right now is needed. It's very, very expensive for refugees. It's very expensive for the immigrants coming to this country. But the Law Society is relying on this. JP, this law doesn't exist anymore. IRPA exists. So you know what I think about this? This is what I think about what's on the Law Society's website. And the Law Society needs to change this immediately, and I'm not going to tell them again. So I really hope once this matter is heard, by the way, this matter, my lawyers told me this matter is getting heard November the 1st or November the 2nd. We're still waiting for a proper date, but it's going to be one of those 2 dates. It's going to be a 3-judge panel. So the matter is in divisional courts right now for the interpretation. I'm not suing the Law Society. So it's the interpretation of immigration. So we're going to be doing an interpretation of this once and for all. It seems that the Law Society was fighting tooth and nail because they want weeks and weeks and weeks to fight this. And I'm very thankful that the court says, no, it's only going to be heard in 1 day only, and that's it. And speaking about immigration, I would like to bring this to your attention. This was just brought to my attention today from the Parliament of our federal parliament. So I'll tell you what this is for anybody that's listening. So the citation of this law, this federal court action is 2020 FC 1191. So this is the Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Authority and the CICC, the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. And they're suing basically the College of Immigration. So this is a big lawsuit that they brought forward because it seems that, again, don't quote me word for word, but it seems that the ICCRC wants to retain their independence. So if we take a look, let me read this to you quickly. Point 26, so whoever gets this case law, read point 26. I'm going to read it to you. So everybody says, including the law side, it says you need a secondary license to practice immigration. They're wrong and they're out for lunch. So this is what it says. With the annual budget in excess of $10 million, the ICCRC's duty is to serve and protect the public by overseeing regulated immigration and citizenship consultants. ICCRC, more than 6,500 members are regulated Canadian immigration consultants, known as the RCIC, and as such, may advise or represent a person for consideration under IRPA and the Citizenship Act. Listen to this, John Paul, apart from lawyers or paralegals or Quebec notaries. So there you go. This is from 2020 that was released just recently. So again, what more information does the Law Society need? You know, they're run by a bunch of lawyers. They know how the law works. So there you go. So this just came out that the college, the ICCRC is suing the college. Now, I also have an IRCC number. I'm very, very proud to have that number. The reason the federal government gave it to me is because I am good standing of the Law Society. So the federal government contacted the Law Society and asked them, does Mr. Caruso have the right? Is he in good standing? Can he practice immigration? They basically said yes, because if I was denied, I would never have my IRCC number, which is needed. This is what made the Canadian Bar Association very, very upset. And I'm sorry for making you guys upset, and I'm sorry that Caruso beat you, but this is what made them upset, because how does a paralegal get this number? Well, it's because it's an IRPA, and we are allowed to have it because we are representatives and we are allowed to be part of this portal. Now, for the Law Society to say only IRB, that's all that you are allowed to do is IRB. Well, how am I supposed to log into the portal? How am I supposed to submit documents if I have to, I need to have the IRCC portal? So at the end of the day, they're providing misinformation to the public and to the licensees. And I'm sorry, they're in the wrong. We're allowed to practice. And I have here a letter from the immigration chair of Ottawa. And I asked him, because I was concerned, Jean Paul, I said, so with this new college that's being formed and the ICCRC that's going out the door, what does this mean for paralegals? So I sent a basic question, and this is how they responded, because it's called the BIA report. And they said, good afternoon. The report you cite is 2 years old. The changes contained in this year's Budget Implementation Act, the BIA, that creates the new College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants, replacing the ICCRC, are the government's response to that report. As written, the changes in the BIA will not bar paralegals. That section of IRPA's 91.2 is specifically referenced in the new changes as including paralegals. It will be up to the new College of Citizenship Consultants to determine who it admits to its practice for those who are not notaries or members of the Notary Quebec, or members of the Law Society such as yourself. This came directly from the immigration chair of Ottawa. To make things more interesting, it was made aware to me that Teresa Donnelly, the former treasurer, contacted the immigration minister. I asked the Law Society to provide me with that information. To date, they haven't given me anything. We're going to discuss about those points in a bit. But I filed the Freedom of Information. Here's the Canadian logo on it. Then we flip it over. Then we have a lovely letter from Minister Fraser, who is the current immigration minister. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the middle paragraph here. So basically what he's saying is, thank you for your correspondence of January 24th of 2022, which you outlined concerns of the Law Society of Ontario regarding the request from the Canadian Bar Association to remove paralegals. So if paralegals need a separate license, what is the big deal of being part of IRPA? So again, the Law Society, I don't know where they're getting at, but here's what the minister says. IRPA states that in members in good standing with their law societies, including paralegals where applicable, are authorized to provide immigration advice and representation. Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada is presently not planning to make any amendments of Section 91 of IRPA. So again, how much more information does the Law Society need? So the Law Society also thinks that Caruso doesn't have any documentation. Well, here's the document, here's the transcript word for word, where the treasurer of the 2010 Law Society went to Ottawa and literally begged the committee, saying, please do not include lawyers, paralegals, student at law as part of the ICCRC. In this document right here, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, which was a member of Parliament, clearly stated, we want to get rid of the immigration consultants and only have the provincial law societies deal with these matters. Well, that caused a little bit of problems. Also in this report is my buddies from the Canadian Bar Association, who actually agreed that paralegals and lawyers and students at law should not be part of the ICCRC. So this is the #1 golden ticket that the Law Society buried under the rugs, thinking that nobody would ever get the chance to find it. So Caruso's got it. This is the document.
Okay, so Tony, I mean, we can certainly discuss more about, the decision or the whether, it's like a federal paramountcy, right? Section 91, 92 type of argument. But I mean, the secondary question that I think, you can separate out is, regardless, should paralegals be able to practice? Because I mean, the Law Society conceivably could put it to convocation, however, clarify a bylaw, and they could make the determination themselves rather than a court interpretation, right? So when people say, look, paralegals, whether or not they should or should not be able to take on these matters, I guess the other question then is, as you and your colleagues point out, is, well, we can take these on without needing any additional education. So maybe you can elaborate more, and you don't necessarily have to restrict it to immigration. There's certainly family law. I think we've heard about divisional court appeals, but why do you feel that paralegals, as presently licensed, without needing any additional education or CPDs or anything, it should be something that, as a bencher, you would advocate for opening all of this up? Because again, irrespective of November 1st, November 2nd, this decision could be made, in the summer, and the court matter doesn't have to deal with it.
If they wanted to.
Yeah, so maybe you can elaborate more on that.
Yeah, so, and that's what I've been trying to do. I've spoken to the Paralegal Standing Committee more than once. They told me that I was correct, that they want to bring me in so we can have a discussion about this, because this does make a lot of sense. But they lie. They haven't never called me in. They never wanted to have meaningful discussions with me. I contact the Law Society, and I've asked them at least 38 times on my record, can you show me where in the bylaws that paralegals are not allowed to practice? You know what they say to me? We have nothing more to add. So again, this doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, because if I'm trying to correct myself as a legal professional, you're saying that I can't practice, but our bylaw says we can, and you're saying bylaw 4, well, show me where we can't, because bylaw 4, section 6, section D says we can. And if you read the Law Society Act, it says that they have to take your scope of practice from the Ontario legislator or an act of parliament. So the Law Society is not even following the laws. So they're snubbing their noses to parliament right now. That's not good, and that's very disrespectful. So getting back to what you're saying in regards to training, I did get training. In 2015, 2014, 2015, I went to Algonquin Careers Academy in Mississauga. They taught us immigration. I got the book here. If you want to see the book, I could show you. So in that book, it talks about student visas. It talks about work visas. It talks about refugees. It talks about everything. So if the Law Society thinks that we're not trained, why did they approve the book in the first place? Why did they allow us to even study immigration? It's the Law Society's fault for removing immigration. I believe only 2 colleges in the entire Ontario that still has immigration right now. So that's the Law Society's fault if they want to make people, if they don't have an idea what's happening in regards to education. But let's talk about the application. What is the applicant's name? Where country are they from? What are they seeking? If you don't know how to fill that out, hand in your P1 license, because you're not a paralegal. So it's no different than filling out a landlord and tenant board, which is more complicated than the immigration forms altogether. So at the end of the day, it's very, very straightforward. What is your name? How is this done? Now, JP, you also, I mean, Jean-Paul, I'm sorry, I don't know what to call you. My apologies. But at the end of the day, you asked a very good question. Why should we allow paralegals to practice if they're not trained? Well, I'm going to turn the question around saying, why should lawyers be allowed to practice immigration when they don't have the education? You know, there's no requirement that they must do immigration. So what makes them so special compared to a paralegal? At the end of the day, it's all about competency. We do have safeguards in effect. So if you end up doing something wrong, we do have a Law Society tribunal that will look at stuff like that. So we do got the safeguards in there. These are the exact same questions that came up in 2010 saying, how are your members, lawyers and paralegals and students at law, how are they able to handle this? And the Law Society treasurer, which her name is, what was her name? Lori Palowski, I can't pronounce her last name, my apologies, but she was the one that told the federal government what the safeguards are. So our people are protected. So everybody's protected. So regardless if they're being deported because of me or they're being deported because of a lawyer or an immigration consultant, at the end of the day, if it has to be appealed to federal court, a paralegal does not have standing in a federal court, nor do we have standing in superior court. So that's when we need a lawyer to come in. It's no different than landlord and tenant. When we do the review, we're allowed to do the review, but if we have to appeal that decision, we need a lawyer to come in. So at the end of the day, I do respect that. I'm not saying put paralegals in federal court, absolutely not. So I want to get that clear right now, but I feel that we are allowed to do the applications. We are allowed to attend the tribunals. We are allowed to attend, even speaking to the immigration officers who do act as tribunals, because if you do the definition of a tribunal, what's a tribunal? Anyone who has authority to speak on the behalf of the minister. So if I fill out an application and this person brings it to the Canadian embassy and they deny it, well, that's a tribunal because they denied, because they had the authority to make that decision if you're allowed to practice or not. So at the end of the day, we have everything there. The reason that we don't have immigration is because of bad governance. Bad governance is running the Law Society as a dictatorship, no different than what's happening in China right now. So that is the issue right now. We got to get rid of this bad governance because they do not believe in advancement of scope. They do not believe in providing anything for paralegals. Just take a look at family law. That is such an embarrassment and a slap to the face, not only to the public, but to paralegals. And I'm going to reverse what Kathy Corsetti has brought forward because she did not listen to the Blanco report. She did not listen to everybody that spent countless of hours into this, into the decision making for what? To do uncontested divorces? Are you kidding me right now? You know, but prior to 2007, paralegals were allowed to do immigration. Paralegals were allowed to do family law. We never had all these restrictions. The problem is we got bad governance and powers right now, and let's regulate every little thing right now. And now they're going to tell us how to run our own business. Like, get out of here. It doesn't work that way.
Okay, so Tony, I mean, looking at that, right? I mean, in the structure of the Law Society, whether you're pointing to previous good governance coalition members, Bencher Corsetti, but in terms of whether you're elected or whoever is elected, in the end, convocation consists of 53 people, 40 lawyers, 5 paralegals, 8 members of the public. So, how, in terms of working within that framework, I mean, again, previous benchers, right, paralegal or lawyers, I mean, they're only one vote out of 50, right? 53. So in terms of who's responsible for those decisions being made, um, can you really lump all of these people together, or you're saying it's like a dictatorship when it's 27 votes collectively? I mean, who knows how the results are going to come from the lawyer side, right? I'm going to speak to hopefully those candidates as well later, but again, with whoever comes out there, whoever comes out on the paralegal side, the 8 members from the public, I mean, collectively 27 of them are going to vote in favor of whether it's expanding immigration, not expanding immigration, changing family law. So how can, working within that framework, if you're elected as bencher, can you work and get these things done through your platform here?
So I already started that. I reached out to a lot of benchers, and they all said to me, Tony, you're right. You are allowed to practice immigration. You can practice immigration. The federal government said so. I'm not going to fight the federal government. You do have immigration. So all it is rubber stamping. The problem right now is the good governance has bad governance, excuse me. They have a grip right now on the Law Society, and they're the ones dictating, even in the Paralegal Standing Committee. We don't have a say in the Standing Committee. So I want to bring this to your attention here. So this was a report released in 2007. So this report in 2007 talks about how there needs to be equality at convocation. So I don't care if there's 10 million lawyers in the province of Ontario and there's only 500 paralegals in Ontario. The voting must be equal. That's it. That's all. I already started the process. That is why the Law Society is very upset with me, because the Competition Bureau is probably knocking on their door right now saying, what are you guys doing? You did not file the report in 2007. So this is the report for anybody that wants to see it. So it's right here. So this is a major, major concern that was brought forward. So at the end of the day, we will have to take a look at convocation, because there needs to be an equal amount of lawyers. There needs to be an equal amount of paralegals. There's no negotiations, not at all. When you have a regulatory body supervising 2 professions, it must be 50-50. Now, people are saying, well, there's more lawyers. How is that fair if a paralegal, at the end of the day, we have layman benchers. We have 8 of them. So they can decide the tipping point on what's going to happen with the Law Society. So lawyers they cannot control the dominance, because what's next? We're going to bring in the Plumber Association and only give them 1 vote, and 5 votes for paralegals, 8 votes for laymen, and whatever, 45 votes for lawyers. No, it needs to be equal. And that's how we're going to change the Law Society. So we're going to change the Law Society. We're going to get it compliant. We're going to make sure that they're following regulations, and we're going to make sure that we're going to have an equal amount of representation, because that's what the government said, and that's what the Law Society needs to follow.
Okay, so in terms of, I guess, increasing the amount of, I mean, the question then that comes up is whether you're a lawyer bencher, a paralegal bencher, a lay bencher, right? I mean, you're supposed to be governing or making decisions, in the public interest, right? So it should theoretically not matter whether you're a lawyer or a paralegal. I mean, you're looking at whether you expand paralegal scope, not from the perspective of more paralegals equal, more competition for lawyers, but rather, is this the right move in terms of, can we balance access to justice with, again, ensuring competence, et cetera, right? But again, whether you're looking at increasing the amount of paralegal benchers, however many, right? I mean, or that process to change the governance. I mean, how, again, in terms of getting support, whether within the paralegal organizations, perhaps, whether with the other paralegal benchers, whether with lawyers or lawyer benchers, I mean, the general public, I mean, maybe kind of look at how we can take, this concept, from an abstract concept to something more practical, that, by the time, if you're elected, because people will want to say 4 years from now, right, maybe they'll come back and watch this video and say, Mr. Caruso was very animated. He was very passionate about doing all these things, but let's compare the results, just like you're looking at results from the previous benchers, right? I mean, how do you get all that done as one voice in 50, right? Or 53, sorry, one voice of 53. So how do you get that support or galvanize lawyers, paralegals, and the lay benchers, and even, obviously the public, because it's supposed to be governing in the public interest, to support some of these things we've been talking about?
That's a very good question, John Paul. And my answer to that is try sleeping with a mosquito in the middle of the night. Let me know how that works. You're gonna be very uncomfortable. So once Caruso is elected, I'm a loud voice. I am going to be shaking everything at the Law Society. I'm no longer asking for satisfaction for my fellow paralegals. I'm demanding it. So I'm going to demand for satisfaction. So at the end of the day, that's what's going on right now. The Law Society is very, very nervous. So is Convocation right now, because there's going to be a major shift this election. I feel it. I feel paralegals are fed up. The public interest is fed up. Everybody's fed up with what's going on with the Law Society. So again, I have been networking. So, for people to say, oh, Caruso is just a strong man, he just likes to yell. No, it's not true. I did negotiate with a lot of these lawyers. I did on my LinkedIn. You have no idea, John Paul, when I received the complaint from that bencher, how many lawyer benchers reached out to me saying that is wrong. That should have never happened. Tony, if you get sent to the tribunal, we're going to fight with you. This is not right. So, and I have asked the Law Society to send me to the tribunal. They haven't sent me yet. So I don't know what games that they're playing right now. I even wrote to the tribunal. I said, can I just, I'll pay you the fee. Can you guys put me in front of the tribunal? They said no. And yesterday, even my legal team, when they received an email, basically that there is no proceedings and there's no intended proceedings at this time. So who knows what they're planning about. But again, that doesn't bother me, because at the end of the day, I actually like when I get Law Society complaints, because that means I'm doing my job. So that means I'm actually advocating for this. So far, out of my, 7 years, 8 years in practice, the majority of complaints came from other licensees and hardly none from the public, because I do a good job. So when I say I'm going to do something, John Paul, I'm going to do it. Like I promised everyone, we're getting immigration. We got it. We have it. It's just a matter of rubber stamping it. So what I'm going to do at Convocation, because none of the 5 benchers, even though that they promised us, again, I'm going to go back to Bencher Corsetti, because she promised us immigration. She was supposed to bring it to Convocation and she did not. So why don't we start of doing that? Saying, ladies and gentlemen, be advised, the law is here. It says we paralegals can practice. Our bylaw says that paralegals can practice. Everything is there. Can we please rubber stamp this so we can move on? Since 2007, we did not have any expansion of scope in my opinion. It took Brian Laurie. It took a former bencher to sue the Law Society. What I'm doing right now, it took him to sue the Law Society to get us POA, highway traffic, because the Law Society did not want to budge. Now I have to do this. Why do I have to take my regulatory body to the courts? Why do I have to do this? Why can't you sit down and talk to me? Why can't we have a cordial conversation on why paralegals are allowed to practice? Here's my evidence. The evidence is here. I have a letter from all the governments, all the most important people that we can practice. What is your problem? You know what I mean, Jean Paul? So at the end of the day, I think we need to show this to their face in order for them to rubber stamp it, because right now everything is done. So the only issue that we got right now is what you said earlier, is the education. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back into the curriculum, because the Law Society had no business to remove it. And I'm going to start an inquiry, because I want to know who the boss was that said get rid of immigration for the paralegals, because there has to be a full inquiry about this, because I believe there's a lot of money that's going around here. I want to know if the Law Society is getting a kickback from the immigration consultants for its members of paralegals. So I want to know why paralegals are paying 2 licenses, 2 insurances. What for? I'm with ProLink. And you know what my insurance said this year about ProLink? Are you practicing in immigration? So it even asks me if I'm practicing in immigration. Why are you asking that question all of a sudden? Why? Because the Law Society knows that a bylaw does not supersede a federal statute. And I hope to God that they're not using the same legal team of the same people that was fighting for the trees initiative. You remember that one? How many thousands of dollars did they save to fight the trees? Come on.
But again, I guess it goes and to the question about education. So again, I can sort of maybe address this because I know at least the education institutions I teach at, that immigration is still there. It's just not a required compulsory course, whether a school chooses to offer it. And I don't know, back in 2014 if it was the same thing, but at least I can tell you that that's an optional course that any school could choose to put in their curriculum if they want to or not. But again, as you say, if we're looking at if that becomes something that's licensed in part of your scope, then I would imagine it would go to the paralegal education team to say, well, now that this has to be a mandatory course.
This is the book, John Paul, right here. Canadian Immigration and Refugee Law for Legal Professionals, second edition. So if we were only allowed to practice in IRB, what the heck is all this? Why are they teaching us on how to do letters of invitation, immigration status, economic political conditions, so why are they teaching this inside the school? So if the Law Society thinks that I don't have the education by their methods, then I want to refund when I went to that school then, because why did I take this course and spend all this money on the paralegals, on the paralegal education for immigration? So it's right here. So this is the book, ladies and gentlemen. This is the book that they did teach you immigration, and the Law Society got rid of, which I don't understand why, but I will, once elected, there will be an inquiry and we're going to figure out everything on why this book was removed.
Okay, so again, in terms of, let's say, looking at advancing the scope, right? I mean, this has come up now with many individuals, obviously, that I've been talking to over the last week. Again, if you're looking at a transition period, because there are some, obviously, like yourself, who may have taken immigration. There are students that I know of right now currently enrolled in an immigration class in a accredited college, and then there are ones that didn't. Right? Is there kind of a way to remedy that, right? In terms of whether you want to have like an immigration test, or do you want to have some CPDs for paralegals? Anything there, in kind of, let's say, again, we'll leave out all the court stuff, but let's say, again, the Law Society convocation can vote and say, let's clarify this. Paralegals should be able to practice in doing the forms in a full scope of immigration outside of federal court, right? So again, transitioning there, what, in light of the fact that there's different educational backgrounds, would you propose in terms of, again, trying to get the support of 26 other benchers to vote in favor of giving immigration to paralegals? So what can you see in terms of getting that done and getting those votes that you'll need, not just your own, but even if you have the other paralegal benchers, 21 more votes to go?
Well, that's a very good question, and I believe I answered it earlier by saying that let's put it back into the curriculum because there's a high demand in immigration right now. And if you read the report in December, the reason that there's a huge delay right now is because lawyers are delaying the immigration, and the ministry right now is investigating this matter. Why is only lawyers that keeps delaying this? So let's bring it back in the education, basically, for paralegals, so we can assist lawyers, take some of that burden off their backs. Let's remove the EDI hours, which is, I don't even know why it's needed in the first place. And let's increase it by an extra 3 hours a year, if that's the case. So what we have to do for EDI, we can use it towards other self-studies. At the end of the day, Jeffrey said Mr. Smith said it's perfectly. You have to be competent. If you're not competent, you're not going to do the work. Like, I know nothing about WSIB. I'm going to let you know that right now. I know nothing about WSIB. I actually wrote my Law Society exam twice because I did not know how to do the WSIB. So I had to get proficient in it. I actually got, a tutor. I sat down and I learned a little bit about the WSIB. But now that I'm self-efficient and now that I'm practicing, will I touch WSIB? Absolutely not. I won't. I won't touch it because I'm not competent enough. So if you're passionate about something, you will get educated on it. You will follow how to do the immigration. Again, this book is a beautiful guide on how to do step by step. So yeah, let's increase the CPDs. We do not need additional, another license. There's another paralegal bencher, the guy that's running, he believes we need a license for this. We need a license for that, special license for this, special license for that. This is, what's he doing? He's doing a job for the Law Society. Let's keep giving all the gravy to the Law Society. No, enough is enough. We need less regulations when it comes to stuff like that. We do not need a million licenses. The one license is good enough. Now, if the Law Society has a problem with me in regards to getting another license, my question to them is going to be, why did you allow grandfather paralegals to become paralegals when I had to take the full course?
Now with again, and certainly I don't necessarily know exactly in terms of the platform of additional licenses, but do you think it would be an easier sell to say, look, here's some of the additional education we can do in order to then get the support, or kind of what would it make it easier for you to go to the benchers and say, look, here's what I would propose? Or do you think, again, just to say, look, here's the education we have. I can go, like you mentioned WSIB. Well, I can go and do WSIB. I've never done it, but nothing stops me other than my rules of professional conduct to be competent. So how is that any different than me going to a different area altogether, i.e. immigration? Is that kind of what you're getting at here? I mean, similar to what Jeffrey
that's what I'm getting at, right? So at the end of the day, paralegals from 2016 and below, we all have education in immigration. Why was it removed in the first place? Why did the Law Society set up paralegals for failure? Why was it removed? So this is something that the bad governance needs to explain to the whole profession and to the public why they removed it when the federal government clearly states that we do have it, and the Law Society advocated for us to practice immigration, saying yes, let our licensees to practice. Why should I'm not an immigration consultant. Why should I have to take that course at Queen's University? And I did try to negotiate with the Paralegal Standing Committee in 2019. I spoke to their lawyer. They even have a special lawyer for that, and that lawyer right now is Will Morse. And he was the one that says to me, we're going to have a big discussion about your matter. This was August of 2019. I have never heard back from him ever since. I don't know what the Paralegal Standing Committee did. Every time you talk to a bencher, they says, oh, we can't talk about that. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, no, that's private. No, that's wrong. I'm sorry. I disagree with that. It needs to be out in the open. The secret society at the Law Society needs to end. It's lawyers, paralegals. Why are they not being accountable to the public? Why is a Law Society exempt from freedom of information? Why is a Law Society exempt from the ombudsman? Why is a Law Society exempt from the privacy commissioner? Why is a Law Society exempt from all these different things? And they're the ones that are saying, we care about the public. No, you don't care about the public, because if you did care about the public, you would make sure that paralegals were able to practice. This is nothing but to protect the Canadian Bar Association and their members and their wallets.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the expression, kill them with, win them over there with honey rather than vinegar, right? But do you think that sort of being, Tony, being outspoken here, and then kind of going within the framework of the Law Society, being, if you're elected as a bencher, do those sort of kind of run contrary? Like, is it better for you to continue on your path, through court action, or I think maybe now you're involved with even the Ontario Paralegal Association. I don't know if that's still the case anymore, but is it through advocacy that way to kind of bring about change within, or is, are you going to have to change your ways, I guess, maybe take off, put on another hat, literally and figuratively, about, if you are elected, right, to kind of do these things within the framework of the Law Society as opposed to, outside of the framework from the Law Society?
That's a very good question. Listen, I am a board of director on the OPA. I want to let you know that. There is a couple of concerns that people say, Tony, if you get elected, you're going to be in conflict of interest. So I'm going to make this public right now through your show here. The second I win for bencher, I will resign my position on the OPA, I want to make sure that there is no conflict of interest. Again, I do not have a lawsuit against the Law Society. I have basically, we brought an application forward for the interpretation of the law so we could get this resolved once and for all. The Law Society is the one who does not want to speak to Caruso or anybody when it comes to immigration. The Law Society is the one that's hiding in a closet. The Law Society is afraid to have communications with me. So this is the only way. I'm going to yell and scream. No one's going to stop me. I'm going to raise my voice until they hear me. And even at convocation, if I'm ignored, I'm gonna be that mouse in that room to scare a bunch of elephants, because that's the way how it's supposed to be. Again, we've waited over 16 years. We have negotiated with the Law Society convocation. We've tried everything. So if the Law Society continues to ignore paralegals, unfortunately, John Paul, I hate to say it, it's going to bother me right now, but let's put it out there. Let's put it on the ballot saying that paralegals should be self-regulated. Enough is enough with the Law Society. Let's be self-regulated once and for all. And that way we are not under the dictatorship of the Law Society, and we'll be part of the Minister of Consumer Protection, and we'll be under the privy of the Attorney General. Just like how it was with other countries such as the UK, Australia, and in some parts in South America that is under that direct control. So unfortunately, if that's going to be the case, if they're going to continue to ignore us, they're not going to provide us with the equality that we deserve, then let's put it on the ballot. Let's become independent. Hey, it worked for Quebec. You know, they got their question on their ballots. Now you have Alberta putting that question on the ballot. Unfortunately, if the Law Society is going to continue to ignore us, and our only option is going to be is self-regulation. Enough is enough.
So Tony, I guess
This
you're
is
saying
serious.
if you are elected, obviously you want to see if you can do it within the framework, and if that's not going to work, like, you know, if you're just that one voice and you're getting outvoted, 52-1 or whatever, then are you proposing just leaving the paralegals should leave the Law Society altogether and have your own self-regulation then?
It's time for self-regulation if it comes to a point like that. Absolutely. Because if we're going to be run by all these 45 lawyers and they don't care about our needs, at the end of the day, you said it perfectly. When you go to convocation, it's about the public interest. That's what the Law Society needs to take under consideration, the public interest. So they need to start protecting the public interest. They need to stop lying to the public, and they need to stop quoting laws from 2011 when that's all been changed. So the website's out of date. So at the end of the day, I'm going to negotiate. Again, I've been speaking to a lot of lawyers. They do not have an issue of paralegals practicing immigration. They do not have an issue. I know for a fact that once I'm elected, we're going to rubber stamp it, and we're going to have immigration. Enough is enough. We're going to have it. I promised everyone we're going to have it. I got the government to state that we have immigration. When the Law Society could stop pointing their finger, blaming the feds now they can point the fingers at themselves, saying that we are the problem. We're the issue here. Let's get this fixed once and for all, and let's have immigration. And then you know what? This will be the first expansion of scope that the Law Society did for paralegals without us fighting it. Why did it take Ben Sherlippa to fight the Law Society or in general with the government to make us officers of the court? So that's another prime example that had to go to the courts. So you had officers of the courts that had to go to the courts. You had POA that had to go to courts, and now my matter I have to seek for an understanding of the law in regards to immigration. So they need to wake up. So I hope that once I'm there, they'll see what I bring to the table, and they're going to come to reason, and they're probably just going to give it to us.
And earlier just mentioned about, in terms of, we were talking about CPDs, and you mentioned, and I don't know if it came up before with someone else on your coalition, but I'll just address it directly to you here about mentioning removing EDI initiatives there, right? I know this has come up, I'm sure when I talk to some of the lawyer candidates more so as well, but is there reasoning or rationale there of why that needs to come out in terms of other things coming in? Certainly you can add hours or whatever you want within those hours, right, in terms of the substantive and requirements, right? But perhaps maybe you can, I know you just mentioned that, so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of explain that, because I know sometimes, I don't know, I think it was Matthew that said, hey, this is going to make me unpopular. So I want you, in case that is an unpopular opinion, to kind of give the rationale behind it, so you can explain to anyone who may be listening and thinking, oh, why did he say that?
Well, I don't follow the status quo. If it's going to make me popular or not, this is not a popularity contest. This is for me fighting for my fellow colleagues and defending the public interest. EDI is a waste of time. Who is the law side to tell me about my statement of principles? We took an oath. That is more than enough. We don't need EDI hours. We don't need these statements of principles. It's already on our bylaws. That's what we have to go by. So if the law side is going to tell me how to run my business, then I'm going to send the Law Society a copy of my bills every month so they can start paying partial of my expenses, because this is my business. This is how I'm running it. I'm very respectful when it comes to my clients. They should not be telling me how to run my business, including EDIs. That to me, that's such a waste, and I believe that needs to go. This is just taking away time from the public in regards to this EDI nonsense. I don't even know why it was brought up. Why would bad governance bring EDI in the first place and try to jam down statements of principles in every legal professional's throats?
And Tony, we're almost out of time, and I don't know if there's more in terms of your platform. Certainly we talked a lot about scope and immigration and certainly changes that you'd like to see within the law study. But I want to give you a chance to highlight anything else that we haven't got a chance to mention yet.
Okay, so I thought about this very strongly, and I want to read everybody my points. I'm gonna do the best I can. So number one, I want to terminate the position of the LSO Review Commissioner, and we're going to appoint a third party. I don't want anything connected to the Law Society to make decisions, and the commissioner time and time again has proven to be pro-LSO. Number two, I'm going to reform the complaints department to add paralegals as investigators, while adding safeguards which would address potentially biased investigators who are in a conflict of interest. I'm also going to audit the complaints department for competency and conflict of interest. So everybody that's got a nice little cozy job in the complaints, when I'm elected, you're actually going to start working. Okay, number three, health and dental benefits for its members. If we're paying this for staff, why can't we buy into it? Number four, no more paralegal money going towards lawyer law libraries unless if they allow paralegal membership. Paralegals should be given a full refund. The Law Society is taking our money from the trust account for the interest, and we're funding lawyer law libraries, and paralegals do not even have a standing, and we're not allowed to be part of that. Give me my money back. Okay, so number six, I'm going to reform the bencher positions as per the Competition Bureau of Canada. We're going to make it even as per the Competition Act. I'm also going to, number five, I'm going to say no more paralegal money going towards legal aid unless the province amends the law to allow paralegals to accept legal aid. Paralegals should also be giving a full refund. I shouldn't have to pay for legal aid if I'm not able to accept certificates. Number seven, I'm going to establish an LSO ombudsman and privacy commissioner to review and investigate matters. We're going to reform the LSO tribunal. We're going to have it made up with third-party neutral members. No more benchers, no more these adjudicators, because at the end of the day, they're political. They've been voted in politically, so why should we have this? It needs to be neutral. Number nine, we're going to also have control measures for LSO fees. Paralegals pay half of what a lawyer pays, and yet we get not even half of what a scope of practice is for lawyers. Number 10, we're going to allow Law Pro to accept paralegals because after all, the Law Society does fund them. So why should I be going to third-party insurances when I can deal with Law Pro? Number 11, accountability and transparency. No more secret meetings unless if it falls in the in-camera guidelines. Everything must be open and for the best interest of the public. It works for Parliament. The Law Society needs to follow suit. Number 12, like I said earlier, I'm going to bring a motion of non-confidence against the current treasurer. We're going to introduce a motion to reduce the LSO treasurer's powers that can override convocations, and we're going to allow paralegals to bring back motions that was removed. That right there shows dictatorship at the Law Society, because paralegals can no longer bring motions because of what the former treasurer Donnelly, what she did by removing that. I'm going to bring that back, and we're going to get rid of the current treasurer. Number 3, I'm going to defund the discrimination and harassment program due to its inability to enforce its own mandates. What is the purpose of me spending the Law Society spending thousands upon thousands of dollars to the discrimination and harassment program when they do not even want to follow their own mandates? It seems that this is just a cushion job. So if you're a friend of somebody, we'll make you part of this discrimination and harassment council, and good luck. That's going to be done. We're going to cut the fat over there. The money that we're going to save from that, we can build a lot of trees. The money that we're going to save from that, we could start bringing in better CPDs for paralegals. And the money that we're going to be saving, we can actually reduce our fees because it keeps going up. And lastly, I'm going to allow paralegals to go to divisional court for appeals for small claims matters and LTB. No second license for family law, as our P1 is good enough. So once again, do I want to touch on this quickly? If you read the rules of civil procedure, it clearly talks about agents is allowed to attend into superior court. So paralegals were once known as agents. So once again, this should be also an easy fix, just like immigration. Let's bring in paralegals to start doing, some appeals for LTB and small claims matter.
Perfect. So Tony, last couple questions here. Again, you talked about your time as a student there, showed us your textbook that you keep, I guess, 8 years later. Maybe you have some advice for any of the students listening about sort of getting into their careers and then perhaps maybe one day even running for bencher as well.
Yeah. What I'm going to say to the students is you've picked a very, very active profession. Good for you. I'm very proud of each and every one of you. Every time I have a student here, my first question is, why do you want to be a paralegal? And I keep getting the same answers. Tony, I want to help people. I want to fight for injustice. Well, this election, this is just it. So it's about me fighting for the injustice that's been going on for paralegals for far too long now. And I want to encourage all of you to keep up with your studies. Even when you're finished school, don't think you're putting the book down, because you have to study. You have to learn the legislation that's always changing. Go to hearings, go to POA hearings. You guys are our future. You are the future. Grandfather paralegals are almost out the door. You are replacing us. Not us. I'm a licensee, just the way how you guys went to school. But keep up the great work. I'm very happy for you. And if you need anything, just call me. I have a lot of students who call me. I'm not shy. And remember, the Law Society there is here to work for you. You are not there to work for the Law Society. So once again, keep up the good work. Don't be brainwashed. Don't be afraid of the Law Society. Do a good job. Keep fighting. Keep advocating, because you are our future. Remember, take care of the public. Do a good job, and then you will be rewarded. John Paul, I do want to take this time to thank a couple of my colleagues who's also running for bencher. Jeffrey Smith, I want to wish you all the best, my friend. Matthew Olson, we call him Padre, because he's the voice of reason. So we want to wish him all the best. Rajesh Segal, we want to wish him all the best. And Josh McDougall, I want to wish all these guys the very best. They all have a great intention. Win or lose. If Caruso loses, I'm not stepping away. I'm still going to advocate for us. I'm still going to fight for us. But for some strange reason, if you feel that I'm not ready for this, I just want you to know I believe we're going to be in good hands of selection, and we're going to say bye-bye to the bad governance once and for all. And JP, it would be rude. I have some butter tarts here. I'm giving you a virtual butter tart. So this is like protection, like the Canadian Goose with the Law Society. I actually got a Law Society complaint because I said Niagara Falls butter tarts is better than the LSO. So I got some butter tarts. So I want to share this with everybody.
Thank you so much, Tony. Last question then, and I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but why should, for any of the paralegals that are listening, not the students now, that the ones that have votes, why should they cast a vote for you, Tony?
Because they know I'm the man of action. They know that I'm not afraid of anybody. They know that I cannot be bought. They know that I'm going to fight tooth and nail. And if anyone gets in my way, I'm the bulldozer. I'm going right through it. So that's it. That's all. They know if they have me at the Law Society, that they have a strong representative. I don't believe in the secret meetings, the secret societies, whatever. My doors are always open. People can come and see me. I have an open door policy. Give me a call. Let's chat. even if you disagree with me, even if you think, Tony, you're stupid, I don't care what you have to say, I don't care. At the end of the day, it's about dialogue. If I can have a dialogue with you, I feel that we could do well. So I believe the paralegals know that they need a strong man at the law side. They know that I will never back down. So they know that they have a friend for life, because this is a face that can be trusted, not the bad governance that clearly lied to us year after year after year. Let's set these people on unemployment. Let's get rid of them. And I promise you all one more thing before I let everybody go, is this. Once elected as bencher, I will not file a law society complaint against you, and I will not assist another bencher to file a complaint or take screenshots to send it. So Bencher Lamazo, I hope you're listening. Stop taking screenshots, start doing your job, and act as a true bencher with the law society, and stop oppressing and silencing everybody. Enough is enough. Grow up. So, and that's what I'm going to say for the good governance. Grow up and start defending the public interest once and for all.
All right. Thanks again, Tony, for taking the time and joining us. Take care, everyone.
Take care.